cross your eyes and leap on into this tree portal because it's time to talk about the next episode of Fionna Cake. We've got a lot to speculate on, including Marshall Lee's past and upbringing, a tree full of time travel, and the super dark implications of Finn's worsening illness. You're watching WhitneyVision, and this is our breakdown of The Butterfly in the River. This is your spoiler warning! If you haven't seen Season 2, Episode 5 of Fionna Cake yet, hit pause on this video and come back once you've barfed up a cat. This week's ep kicks off with yet another blast to the past, this time flashing back to Marshall's childhood. Outside the Abadir's Gothic cathedral home, there's a billboard that reads, "Have needs? Stop it!" which is actually a pretty good summary of Marshall and Hannah's relationship when he was growing up. Hannah was always way too busy to give her son the proper attention and support he needed to feel loved. Instead of noticing his interest in rhythm and drumming, Hannah yells at him for making too much noise. She forces him to sit with her in silent studying, only interacting with him when she feels like he's done something wrong. She's condescending towards him and even rips up his homework to punish him for doodling. It's clear that Hannah's expectations of her son are way too high, especially for how young he is. Little boys don't want to be inside reading Focus Pocus. They want to make noise and yell and get dirty and run around and make a mess. Hannah stifles all of his natural instincts, his curiosity, and his creative expression. And as we saw last season when she tried to convince him to join the Abadir family business, Hannah has continued to try to force her son to follow in her exact footsteps, regardless of his personal skills, dreams, and ambitions. Inside Hannah's office, you'll see a bat carving on top of her clock that looks similar to Marceline's vampire bat form. And she also has a pretty vast collection of books in her library. On her bookshelf, we see Dawn's Kid, If Magic Were Real, 10 Things and Why, On Being Poor by Niles Duffett, Seeing Through the Eyes of the Weak, Several Wicked Notions, Vile Poems, Gone Is All the Goodness, Old Time Situation, Nights Alone by Al Cool, Desmond of the Moors by Benson, To Purchase Happiness by Ives, Topics Reviled by Tansbury, Blood-Colored Objects by Stan Faint, Oblong Affair 2 by Tate, Killing the Thirst, Wealth Sickness, Top Tier Public Relations by Eggs, Lockup Needs by Stoic and Zeno, Manipulating Everyone NBD, Liking Why by Roy, The Penguin Who Won, The Key to All Locks, Your Precious Ideas, The Unbearable Weight of Expectation, Elegant Myths Dispelled by Edwin Allen, and Liking Why. My favorite book on the shelf, however, is Mind Games by C.T. Feline, a reference to the book of the same title written by J.T. Dogzone. In the original series, this book was first mentioned in Season 4's Reign of Gunters. It's brought up a bunch more times throughout the show and becomes increasingly obvious that Jake wrote it. Mind Games is based on The Game, Penetrating the Secret Society of Pickup Artists by Neil Strauss, and they both give terrible tips on how to woo the ladies. After getting kicked out of his mom's office, Marshall wanders to the park with the money she threw at him instead of giving him any amount of parental affection. There, he hears the ice cream lady, Simone, playing the keyboard for her cats, similar to the way that the Ice King used to play the drums for his penguins. She makes him feel better when he spills his cone, and she even lets him play around with her instrument. Although we don't know yet what happened between the two of them, Marshall later tells Gary that adults in his life have ghosted him before, and he's definitely referring to Simone when he says that. His mom calls him constantly, and has him physically followed by her spy, Damon. She's way too overbearing to ghost him. I actually think it's possible that Hannah put a stop to their friendship because she was jealous of Simone's ability to bond with her son. Or maybe she didn't want her wealthy kid slumming it with the ice cream lady. Regardless of why she did it, I strongly suspect that she and Damon are the reason why Marshall and Simone stopped talking. We even see this jerkwad lurking in the park with a Ricardio balloon while Fionna and Marshall are hanging out. Unfortunately for Marshall, Gary has a tendency to display a few of Hannah's shitty characteristics, like when he gives Marshall the no when he doesn't cut the baking chocolate right. Gary is definitely a perfectionist and a little bit of a control freak in the kitchen, and I think Marshall is starting to worry that he's not always good enough for his boyfriend. But although both of them are nervous about Marshall meeting Gary's parents for the first time, I think that the dinner went as good as you could hope. For starters, Gary is wearing the adorable striped sweater that PB wears in several episodes of Adventure Time. Second, Gordy and Gertie are super adorable, supportive parents, and his sister Nellie is a dope furry artist on Quailquester. Her screen name is NellieFox_Soul Shattered Darkcore, and she's using a Waymo 95 desktop computer. the Fionna World variant of Tag. Nellie is obviously this world's version of PB's gum dragon brother Nettie, whose upside-down smile mirrors Nellie's unibrow. But interestingly, Gordy and Gertie are not Fionna World variants of the mother gum that actually birthed PB. According to artist Tom Herpich, they're actually modeled after the bruised banana trio that guards Nettie's room deep inside the Candy Kingdom. We met these guys in Season 7's Bonnie and Nettie, and according to Tom's Instagram post, they're potentially in a polyamorous throuple. Wow, that really gives new meaning to the line about Gary's mom having 2 men in her life. Gary's family clearly loves him, and unlike PB, who was forced to make her own extended family out of gum, he's a lot more well-adjusted because he had such a close family growing up. PB didn't have parents, and her uncle Gumbald betrayed her multiple times. All season long, I've seen fans complaining on Twitter that Gary's being too nice to Queenie, and that Peebles would have already called her a tranche 11 times by now. But I think that's because he's had a less traumatic past than Princess Bubblegum has, which might be why he has more patience. Marshall gives Gordy and Gertie a plant, telling them that when he was a kid, his mom made him take ikebana classes to learn the art of Japanese flower arrangement. When he sits down to play the song Simone taught him on the prince's keyboard, you can see a stuffed version of Timmy chilling on the speakers. Over at Cake's apartment, Fionna wakes up with a sore back from sleeping on top of a dresser, similar to the way that Jake's bed is inside a dresser drawer. Cake pours coffee into a mug that looks like Jake's favorite mug, which appears in a ton of AT episodes. Huntress demands that Fionna takes her to this world's heart of the forest, so Fionna takes her and Cake to the oldest tree in town, which looks just like Finn and Jake's treehouse. Huntress tries slicing her hand off again to reconnect with the heart, but it doesn't do shit, and now she's just looking like Luke Skywalker at the end of Empire. While she tries to figure it out, Cake settles down to finish reading Of Human Bondage by W. Somerset Maugham. She was definitely expecting it to be something kinky, but the actual book is just about some dude's extremely sad life. Mkron texts her and asks her to go on a redo date, but before she can leave, Huntress Wizard plays a note on her flute, triggering a hum to emanate from the tree. She crosses her eyes to open a portal in the tree, just like Peppermint Butler taught Finn and Jake to do in Season 2's Death in Bloom when they open a portal to the Land of the Dead. Inside the tree, tardigrades float around while Huntress and Cake try to figure out how to exit the tree in the right part of the timeline. Huntress deduces that they're traveling through the tree's lifespan in Oo, and that they need to follow the river to find the correct hole to jump out of. In the past, Cake kills a spider who's about to kill a butterfly because she heard once that if you go back in time, you can't let a butterfly die at any cost. The spider looks a lot like the guys introduced in Season 4's Web Weirdos, R.I.P. But Cake ends up learning all about the butterfly effect when the pair travel 1,000 years into the future. There, these butterflies have taken over, and most of the world is dead except for baby Finn and his little pep tank pendant. It turns out that those butterflies are somehow linked to Golbetty. I'm unsure if their Golbetty wing pattern is a result of Fionna World's origins within the Ice King's head, or if this is signaling that these creatures are somehow an incarnation of the Chaos God. If you recall, Finn himself is an incarnation of the Blue Catalyst Comet, and once lived a life as a butterfly. Is this like the same deal? Is Golb another Catalyst Comet that reincarnated as a whole species of killer bugs? With all the other background Golb details this season, I'm starting to wonder if we should expect to see their return down the line. Finn wearing a butterfly wing cape and carrying a needle could be a reference to Hollow Knight, which tracks because I think Huntress raids Fionna's wardrobe for a Hollow Knight shirt earlier in the episode. Baby Finn takes these flying monsters out in the same way that Huntress killed the mouse inside Fionna's apartment. It turns out that Baby World Finn stays a baby forever, even if he's 1,000 years old, and is apparently immortal. This somewhat confirms to me the theory that Baby World is a timeline born from a Princess Bubblegum wish to keep all of Oo eternally safe. Clearly the wish that made this world magically altered Baby Finn's biology. While Cake is dealing with the fact that the tree somehow attached her body to Huntress's severed arm, Mkron waits alone for Cake to show up for their date on a swan boat. Now, the Adventure Time wiki page says that this swan boat is supposed to represent Princess Bubblegum's joystick-driven, laser-shooting swan from Season 1's dungeon, but real Adventure Time fans know that this is the Fionna World version of the swan boat where Jake got Lady Rainicorn pregnant. Was Mkron gonna try to bone down with Cake in the middle of a public lake? What little freaks, I love them. Next, Cake pokes through a portal that leads to a junked-up version of Fionna World where Fifi works directly for Hannah Abadir. But if this tree shows the future and past of this specific tree, does that mean that this will definitely happen in the future? Or is this something that can be changed if Fionna makes different choices in the present? The ending of this episode has me a little worried that this scenario could potentially come true, but I'll come back to that when we talk about Fionna's plot threads in a minute. After finding the correct portal home, regrowing her body, and barfing up Cake, Huntress notices a golden scar across her arm in the exact same spot where she had cut it off. Cake also points out that Huntress leveled up by growing a fresh pair of antlers. But despite these minor wins, their adventures didn't lead them to the heart of the forest, and Huntress still has some huntressing to do. While these guys were effing around in the tree, Fionna met with Flame to get his advice on how to promote the fundraiser. As they walk past the poke place, Stanley and the squirrels knock over a bush that looks just like the one Hunter gave her at the sweet spot. This has to mean something in my opinion, but what exactly? Does it mean that Hunter and Fiona's potential fling is doomed? That the sweet spot will never open? That the heart of the forest is too weak for Huntress to find? That this flower is related to Fionna World's heart of the forest? Considering that it gave Fionna the same wound as Finn, that could be it, but let me know what you guys think it means in the comments. We see a couple of cameos in these scenes, like Starchy, Fionna World Wildberry Princess, and a gender-swapped version of Little Destiny and Jay. At first, I thought that these guys were the OG Farm World versions with new haircuts, but we later see Farm World Destiny and Jay in another episode. So there are two versions of these two running around Fionna World. This girl is the Flame Minstrel, and she's having a meal with an old guy who looks like he could be a version of Mini Queen or one of the many ant characters. Inside Flame's recording space, Studio Mellow, we meet a kid with a puffed shirt on and see some music producers in the sound booth. These characters are a reference to Casey Jones and the Stay Puft Kid, the conceptual pop duo made up of Casey James Basicus and Tim Kiefer. If those names sound familiar, that's because they're the original composers of the Adventure Time theme song. The Puff Shirt Kid is also the human version of Ooze Marshmallow Person, and Flame's producing engineer could possibly be Human Nepter considering that he's FP's rapping partner. But I do think that if we get Fionna World Nepter, we'll know who she is immediately. Inside, we also spot several owl photos that could be a nod to the Cosmic Owl, as well as a blue mini Hambo hanging on the wall. But despite all she gained from talking with Flame, Fiona's hopes are shattered when she spots Queenie trying to bulldoze the sweet spot. She tells Fionna that she wants to turn it into a parking lot, and mentions that that's how Hannah Abadir started her business. Back in episode 1, Fionna called Queenie a jumped-up Abadir wannabe, and it looks like she really clocked her. This tranche ups the price to $70K, so Fionna has to figure out a way to make even more money at this fundraiser. On her walk past the bookstore, you'll spot posters in the window for Kids Comic Workshop, Babes of Poetry Night, a spicy book club, and of course, a Scarab Relief ad. But it turns out she's not strolling alone. Hannah's spy Damon is following her around in a realistic dog costume, which is honestly just a super weird thing to do. Don't do that to women. Confronting him gives Fionna an idea, however, and she asks him to take her to Hannah, likely so that she can ask Marshall's rich mom to front them the cash they need to buy the lot. That's why that part of the tree's timeline worries me. Will Fionna actually get swept up in working for Hannah? Or will she be able to avoid that fate by making smart choices and working with her now? Either way, Marshall is gonna be pissed when he finds out, because the last thing he wants to do is ask his mom for another favor, or even involve her in his life at all. Back in OO, things are looking even more dire for Finn. Although Simon, Marcy, and PB sacrifice a piece of their souls to enter the demonic wishing eye, Wishy doesn't actually grant their wish to heal Finn. He just gives him googly eyes and a mustache. Wishy was first seen back in Season 10's Bananas, and he is absolutely useless. When they remove the glasses from Finn's face, the gang is horrified to discover that his face ages considerably in a matter of seconds. It's clear that he's getting closer and closer to his croak dream, and I'm actually starting to worry that he might die this season. And that's because he's starting to look almost as old as he did when we saw him transition into Death and Distant Lands together again. A part of me is definitely scared that Finn is in serious harm. What if this poison is what caused him to look that old when he died, and not his actual age? Before anyone freaks out, it's totally possible that this is a fake out, especially because we saw the aged up dead versions of so many different characters in Together Again, which most likely means that they all also got old and died long before Finn did. But what if the characters we saw in Together Again really all have just already died before Finn? Finn is older and Jake is gone at this point, so it's possible that the others we saw like Tree Trunks or Wyatt or Mr. Fox or the Snail also got old and died between the end of Adventure Time and the start of Fionna and Cake. Personally, I really hope Finn doesn't die in his 20s because that would suck. But man, the writers and artists are really starting to freak me out with this shit, especially because he hasn't been able to smooch Huntress yet this season. Dying young and smoochless is just a bad vibe, man. Those are all the Easter eggs and details that I could find in The Butterfly in the River, but I want to know if there's anything I missed in the comments. I'm Scarlett Witt, and you're watching WhitneyVision.